Chapter 7. A Dangerous Plan. Suzette was about to walk back into the store when she recognized Captain D'Amboise's voice. "Any more trouble?" "No, sir," Rousseau said. Suzette stopped near the door, just out of sight. She didn't want to talk to D'Amboise. "I hear that Jacques Dupree has set up a camp on the northeast end of the island, beyond Big Bay." "I don't like the sound of that. I'm going to send Baptiste and one of the soldiers to pay a visit. Dupree has no business here. When an illegal trader sets up camp so close to Fort La Pointe, it means trouble." "I don't think he can really compete with us here at the post," Rousseau pointed out. "The Indian people know they get fair trade for their pelts here, and quality goods in return. They have no reason to start going elsewhere." "Well, keep an eye on the books," Captain D'Amboise said firmly. "If people suddenly stop trading here, I want to know about it. We'll run that scoundrel off the island." Suzette waited until she was sure D'Amboise was gone before she walked back into the store. "Monsieur, look!" She smoothed the paper out on the counter and told him how she'd found it. "I think it's the inventory from the stolen bale." "Mon Dieu!" he exclaimed. "I think you're right." He paused, reading the list. "Of course, I remember that batch. Those beaver pelts were very unusual. Someone brought them in from the mainland. Said they came somewhere west of here. Baptiste said he'd never seen anything like them either. I didn't realize those were in the stolen bale." Baptiste walked through the doorway. "What's this about the stolen bale?" "Suzette found the inventory," Rousseau told him. "Now we know exactly what furs were taken. Remember those pelts with the golden stripes?" Baptiste looked startled. "Those were stolen?" "Now we know what to look for," Suzette said eagerly. "Have you learned anything?" She held her breath, hoping the interpreter had good news. But he shook his head. "I'm afraid not. I asked everyone. People sometimes trust me more than the regular fort men. I thought I might hear something." He spread his hand, shrugging. "But I didn't." Discouragement weighed on her shoulders like a bear robe. Baptiste was smart and capable, a man everyone knew and trusted. If he couldn't learn anything, what chance did she have of finding the thief? "I still find it hard to believe that anyone who trades at the fort would commit such a theft," Rousseau said with a sigh. Baptiste shrugged again. "I could think of several men who might have done it." Was he thinking of Niskigwan and Big Nicholas, or other people altogether? "If only," Suzette began, then bit back the words. Baptiste leaned against the counter and folded his arms. "You should stop wondering about it," he told her. "Give up. We'll probably never know who did it. It could have been almost any trapper on the island." "No," Suzette cried. She couldn't believe that. "You're too young to understand," Baptiste said impatiently. "Times are changing. When I was a boy, men trapped fur so they could trade for what they needed, cloth for a new shirt, or gunpowder, or a cooking kettle. But as the years went by, they got spoiled and greedy. Look at this." He reached over the counter and picked up a handful of silver jewelry. "Earbobs, necklaces, bracelets. This is what people want now. They are becoming more dependent on the French and their ways every year. I tell you, times are changing." Rousseau frowned at Baptiste, drumming his long fingers on the counter. "My friend, you sound sour. Don't take your frustrations out on the girl." Baptiste slowly put down the jewelry. "Yes, you're right." He shook his head. "I grow weary of working for you Frenchmen. The trappers who only come to the fort now and then see only the good things the Frenchmen have brought. I see both sides, the good and the bad." "Perhaps one day you'll move away from the French forts, on to the western country as you've spoken of," Rousseau said. "Leave us all behind, eh?" "Ah, you would miss me then," Baptiste grinned. "Rousseau, I came for some of your good black tobacco. I gave all of mine away on this trip." Tobacco was often given as a gift of goodwill among Indian people. After the interpreter had left the store, Rousseau turned to Suzette. "Don't mind him," Rousseau said gently. "He is frustrated." "About the theft?" Suzette asked slowly. She was still mulling over the things Baptiste had said. "In part. He hasn't found any answers. Captain D'Amboise isn't happy. Baptiste thinks Captain D'Amboise is harder on him than on the other workers because he is métis." "Métis like me," Suzette thought. "Part French and part Ojibwe?" "Both and neither." "Do you think that's true," she whispered, "about Captain D'Amboise?" "I don't know. I'm not métis. I find Captain D'Amboise a fair man to work for." "Do you think Baptiste will really move on?" Suzette couldn't imagine him leaving. He knew everyone, knew where all the winter camps were. Rousseau smiled. "Oh, he dreams at times, as we all do. Baptiste dreams of heading west, setting out his own trap lines, leaving the rest of us behind. Was her friend and tutor thinking of leaving too? What do you dream of, monsieur? Do you wish to move on as well? Roussein smiled. Don't look so sad, Suzette. I'm here because I want to be, but perhaps sometimes I dream of traveling back to Montreal, or to Paris, as I have often suggested to you. I wish you could see what life is like there. Suzette chewed her lip. Was this Montreal a place her family could go if Papa was banished? Papa said little of his former life there, or of his parents. But maybe. Monsieur Roussein, what is it like in Montreal? Well, it's a city. More people and buildings than you can imagine. Coaches and wagons and... He spread his hands, as if at a loss for words. Do you think Mamma would like it there? And Grandmother and Yellow Wing? No, he said quietly. You might come to like it in time, since you have so much French blood. But I don't think they would be happy there. And I don't think they would be accepted. But why, she demanded, overwhelmed with frustration. The Ojibwe people accept Papa. Yellow Wing thought of Papa as a brother, and all of their family and friends had welcomed him. He had even been adopted into the Eagle clan. But did some people like Two Fish, resent that too? Monsieur Roussein opened his mouth, closed it again, and finally shrugged helplessly. That's not a question I can answer, Suzette. Just then an Ojibwe family came into the store. I've promised my wife new silver for her ears, the man said proudly, pointing to the tray of ear bobs. You marked down the credit for my furs over the cold months. Now I will get the silver. Suzette left as Roussein showed them the jewelry. I wonder if Baptiste is right, she thought, hearing the children exclaim in excitement as their mother tried on the new ear bobs. Then Suzette shook her head. No, she wasn't ready to believe his ugly words. The Ojibwe trappers worked hard all winter. Maybe they did enjoy buying gifts for their family after the voyageurs arrived with new goods each spring. That didn't mean they were greedy, or capable of stealing furs. Suzette kicked a rock angrily as she headed toward the fort gate. It was becoming clear that she couldn't count on Baptiste or Captain D'Amboise to find the thief. It sounded as if they had given up. Well, she wasn't giving up, and now she knew what kind of furs to look for. But where should she look? Suzette paused outside the fort, near the makeshift camp the voyageurs had pitched. She took a deep breath, considering, then approached a man leaning on one elbow, smoking his pipe. Pardonnez-moi, is Big Nicholas about? Haven't seen him. Might be at his lodge, the man pointed. Suzette hesitantly approached the wigwam that Big Nicholas had built at the edge of the Ojibwe camp, near the voyageurs' shelters. Bonjour, she called. Big Nicholas. There was no answer, just the faint laughter of some men swapping stories nearby. The fire pit was cold. Did she dare search his lodge? Suzette felt her stomach twitch nervously as she squatted by the entrance. Just a quick peek. There was no harm in that, was there? She pulled aside the deerskin hanging over the doorway and peered into the lodge. Although he had no woman to tend his things, it was tidy. Blankets were neatly folded, and several storage baskets lined the back wall. But other than a bare robe he obviously used for sleeping, she couldn't see any furs. A heavy hand clamped on her shoulder. Suzette's heart jumped like a kernel of corn dropped in hot bear grease. She scrambled to her feet. What are you doing? Big Nicholas was frowning. I was just... She forced herself to take a deep breath. I was looking for you. Now think of a reason why. Big Nicholas didn't look convinced. What for? Suzette glanced over her shoulder, as if to make sure no one could hear. For Papa, she whispered. I wanted to ask you to visit him. Try to cheer him up. Did he believe her? She hoped he couldn't hear her heart hammering. She had never been afraid of Big Nicholas before. Was she just feeling guilty for snooping? Or did he have something to hide? The voyageur's frown slowly turned into a glare. Suzette was just tensing to run when he turned his head toward the trading post. I'm very angry at D'Amboise, he said finally. No one believes Philippe is a thief. As Big Nicholas promised to visit Papa, Suzette tried to hide her relief, and her disappointment that she hadn't found any answers. There was one more place to look. She asked a passer-by for directions to Niskigwan's lodge. Just before she reached it, though, she spotted him sitting by his cook fire, all alone. One look at his face, bent over a spear point he was shaping, stilled her feet. Even alone, intent on his task, Niskigwan looked angry. Try as she might, she couldn't think of any reason to start a conversation with him. No Ojibwe girl would approach a man and speak first, much less get a peek into his lodge. Feeling both relieved and defeated, she turned back toward home. The Ojibwe camp in the big meadow was busy. Walking back to her lodge, Suzette passed women working together to scrape deer hides free of bits of blood and dirt. Some men shouted over a gambling game. A girl wandered among the lodges crying, "Men mengwa," which meant butterfly, butterfly. Children were playing hide and seek, and the girl was asking the butterflies to help her find her playmates. Maybe I should call upon Memengwa to help me find the furs, Suzette thought. I might have better luck. Suzette, the little girl called, will you play with us? I can't, Suzette said, shaking her head regretfully. For a moment she wished she was still a carefree child, too. That afternoon, Mama sent Suzette to the lakeshore with an armload of laundry and a kettle of strained ash water. The weak lye solution would help clean the clothes. Suzette had just waded into the cold water when she heard Gabrielle calling her name. Suzette! Gabrielle ran to join her. Your mother told me you were here. Some of the girls were hoping to play a game of double ball. I'll help you with your washing, and then maybe we can both play. Usually Suzette loved to play this game, in which two sand-stuffed balls, connected by a leather thong, were tossed and caught on sticks the players carried. But she shook her head. I don't think so. I'm still thinking about the stolen furs. She told Gabrielle about finding the inventory. So now I know what to look for. 3 beaver pelts with golden stripes. If I find them, I find the thief. Are you going to search the lodges of Niskigwan and Big Nicholas? I tried, Suzette exclaimed, and quickly explained what had happened. Gabrielle shook her head. It would be hard to hide those special beaver pelts so close to the trading post anyway. The furs must be hidden somewhere away from camp. Suzette paused from scrubbing Papa's red shirt. But where? They could be anywhere. Gabrielle spread her hands helplessly. A hollow tree, a thicket, anywhere. A man who knows the island could find many places to hide stolen furs. Niskigwan probably knows the island well. Big Nicholas wouldn't, since he hasn't spent as much time here. But, oh! Suzette stared at her friend. Yellow Wing told me that Big Nicholas was asking some of the men about the island, about the land, whether there were any caves on the island. Gabrielle, what would make a better hiding spot for stolen furs? Do you know of any caves on the island? No, but if there are any, my brother would know. The fort men hired him to hunt for them, so he's been all over the island. Will you ask him? It's a good place to begin, but... Suzette's excitement faded again. Those fur bales are so heavy. Big Nicholas couldn't have carried one. Not with his bad arm. Niskigwan could have. But he wasn't the one asking about the caves. Maybe Big Nicholas had help, Gabrielle said, lifting a heavy wool blanket from Suzette's pile of laundry and sloshing it into the shallow water. But Suzette, maybe the furs are already gone. If the beaver pelts are so unusual, they must make the thief nervous. Maybe he threw them into the lake. Maybe, Suzette admitted. But beaver pelts are valuable. I don't think a trapper would waste them. He may have hidden them, but he'd still want to get full trade value for them. He must know he can't bring them to the fort. Monsieur Roussain would recognize them. So what can he do with them? Use them himself? Not with those golden stripes. No, he'd need to trade them somewhere else. Suzette pounded Papa's red shirt against a rock, her thoughts pounding too. The thief would have to find another trader. She dropped the shirt. Gabrielle! Just this morning Captain Damboy said an illegal trader named Jacques Dupree had set up camp on the far end of the island. I'll bet the thief plans to trade the beaver pelts there. Gabrielle, that must be it. An unlicensed trader? Gabrielle shook her head as she tugged the blanket out of the water and spread it on a large flat rock to dry in the sun. How can you ever know if someone traded the stolen beaver pelts to him? You can't just ask him. No, Suzette said slowly. A school of tiny minnows swam past her legs, tickling her skin. She hardly noticed. I'll have to go to his camp and wait until he leaves, and then see what I can find. Sneak into his camp? Gabrielle stared. Suzette, what if he catches you? "I won't let him catch me," Suzette said. Her voice was confident. She just wished her insides, the place in her stomach suddenly churning like a stormy lake, felt as certain.